Silver chains burned into Ember's wrists as the wolves tightened their circle around her. She had already accepted that the Moonshadow Pack would watch her die without mercy. Then every wolf stopped. At the edge of the execution ground stood the Alpha King. He said nothing at first. He didn't need to. Even the elders lowered their eyes beneath the weight of his presence. But when his gaze settled on the rejected Omega kneeling in chains, something about the judgment no longer seemed certain. And then he finally spoke. Release her. Chapter 1. The weak shall inherit nothing but dust and shame. Elder Moira had whispered those words to Ember on the night of her first shift, her wrinkled hand resting cold against Ember's fevered forehead. Accept your place, child, and the pack will protect you. Ember would eventually learn that acceptance was often just another name for surrender. Protection was not something every wolf received. It belonged to those the pack considered worthy. When you were born an Omega at the bottom of the hierarchy, and when your wolf was too weak even to produce a proper scent, you learned quickly that appearance, power, and rank mattered more than the heart beating inside your chest. You learned that mercy could disappear the moment you became inconvenient. And Ember had always been different. When other young wolves completed their first transformations, they emerged carrying unmistakable scents: pine, earth, wild honey, storm. Their scents announced what they were, where they belonged, and how much power they carried. Ember had emerged with nothing, no scent, no rank, only a small gray wolf with oversized eyes and a body that looked too frail beside the others. Broken, some wolves called her. Cursed, others whispered. Even Ember's own mother had turned away after seeing her transformed wolf. The shame in Alora's eyes had burned more deeply than any insult. Years later, Ember understood something far crueler. She had never been broken. She had simply been inconvenient, and inconvenient wolves were rarely shown mercy. They were removed. That truth had brought her to the execution circle. Silver chains bit into Ember's wrists as she knelt beneath the moon. Around her, the wolves of Moonshadow Pack moved closer. Their eyes reflected anticipation, certainty, bloodlust. They believed she was guilty. Guilty of betrayal. Guilty of weakness. Almost guilty merely for existing as an Omega in a pack that worshipped strength. Ember closed her eyes. She had stopped fighting. She was ready for the end. Then everything became silent. Not the peaceful silence that came before sleep. Something heavier. Something powerful enough to make every wolf stop in the middle of a step. Hackles rose. Not from aggression, from instinctive fear. Ember opened her eyes. A man stood at the edge of the execution circle. The Alpha King. His figure seemed carved from moonlight and shadow. He had made no sound. He hadn't needed to. Power radiated from him so strongly that even the elders and beta enforcers lowered their gazes. Everyone submitted, everyone except Ember. She couldn't make herself look away. His eyes found hers across the clearing. Something shifted inside her chest. Ancient, impossible, unmistakable. A single word seemed to rise from somewhere deeper than thought. Mine. The Alpha King tilted his head as he studied her. Ember should have been terrified, but she was already kneeling to die. One more impossibility hardly mattered. Then the king finally spoke. His voice was quiet and controlled. Release her. Ember's story had begun 23 years earlier, beneath the shadow of the Silver Pine Mountains, where Moonshadow Pack had ruled for generations. She had been born beneath a blood moon. The elders called it an omen, although none of them agreed on whether it promised fortune or disaster. Her mother, Alora, was a respectable mid-ranking wolf. Ember's father had died in a border skirmish before his daughter ever drew her first breath. She'll be strong, Alora had promised as she held the newborn Ember against her chest. She'll make us proud. But Ember eventually learned that pride inside Moonshadow Pack had to be earned through power, and power was the one thing she seemed destined never to have. Her early childhood had been ordinary. She ran through the forest with the other pups. She learned to hunt, fight, track, and survive. Back then, she even had friends. Kiera had possessed a bright laugh and a quick mind. Dorian often shared part of his kills whenever Ember returned from a hunt with too little food. Reese, the future Beta's son, trained beside her without complaint. For a while, Ember had believed she belonged. Everything changed when she turned 16. The entire pack gathered at the ceremonial grounds for the young wolves' first shifts. Ancient stones surrounded the clearing, each carrying traces of old magic. One after another, the young wolves transformed beneath the full moon. Kiera became a beautiful russet wolf. Alpha potential was visible in every movement of her powerful body. The pack howled approval. Dorian transformed into a massive gray wolf, whose beta strength was impossible to mistake. More celebratory howls filled the clearing. Then Ember's turn came. She felt fire racing through her veins. Her bones cracked and reshaped. Pain swallowed everything. And then, nothing. There was no overwhelming rush of power. No commanding instinct. No magnificent wolf. Only a small gray animal that barely reached the shoulders of the others. Worse, Ember had no scent. Every wolf possessed one. Scent revealed rank, strength, and even compatibility. Alphas often carried scents of thunder and iron. Betas smelled of rich soil and smoke. Even omegas normally carried softer scents such as wildflowers or honey, marking them as caretakers, nurturers, and the emotional heart of a pack. Ember smelled like nothing at all. Elder Moira approached Ember's transformed body slowly. Her nose twitched as she searched for any trace of identity or rank. None came. The clearing grew painfully quiet. At last, Moira spoke. No rank, no scent. The moon has rejected this one. The howls that followed were not celebratory. They sounded like mourning. Ember looked toward Alora. She wanted her mother to comfort her, to say the elders were wrong, to promise that she still belonged. Instead, Alora turned away. Her shoulders folded beneath shame. That night, Ember learned what true loneliness felt like. The following years became a long lesson in survival. Because she had no rank, Ember occupied an uncomfortable space inside the pack. Moonshadow did not exile her. Every wolf was useful for labor, and numbers mattered. But they never truly accepted her either. She received the worst work. She cleaned waste. She prepared dead wolves for burial. She repaired torn clothing, broken equipment, and tools no one else wanted to touch. Her home was a small hovel near the edge of the territory, far from the communal dens where families ate together, laughed together, and loved one another. Ember ate last. Sometimes nothing remained. She learned to speak only when someone addressed her first. Even then, most wolves barely listened. Kiera became one of Moonshadow's most promising young alphas. Whenever she passed Ember in the village, she often looked through her as though their childhood had never happened. Dorian took a powerful beta female as his mate and started a family. He stopped acknowledging that he and Ember had ever been friends. Only Reese remained complicated. He grew into the beta heir, second in authority, only to Alpha Garrett. Strong, handsome, respected. Everything an unmated wolf was supposed to want. And for reasons Ember could never completely understand, Reese continued noticing her. Once he found her scrubbing blood from the butchering stones. "You don't have to live this way," Reese told her. "I could talk to my father. Maybe I could get you assigned better work." Ember looked at the pity in his eyes. Something inside her shrank. "I don't need your charity, Reese. It isn't charity. He hesitated. "You deserve better." But Reese never actually challenged his father. He never confronted the pack. He never openly defended her. His kindness consisted of words and lingering looks. Nothing more. Still, Ember had been foolish enough to hope. Somewhere inside her, she imagined that perhaps she could matter to someone after all. That hope died 3 months before her execution. Moonshadow Pack gathered for the spring celebration, honoring the first successful hunt of the season and the couples who had pledged themselves as mates. The night was filled with music, dancing, and howls beneath the stars. Ember attended only because staying away would have been considered disrespectful. She stood at the back, trying to disappear. Then Rhys walked forward. The crowd became quiet. "I've chosen my mate," he announced. Ember's heart stumbled. Earlier that evening, Rhys had looked at her once. For a moment, she thought she saw regret in his eyes. "Kiera Nightshade," Rhys continued. "Alpha-born, strong, worthy. She has agreed to stand beside me." The pack erupted into celebration. Kiera stepped forward, radiant with pride. Rhys wrapped an arm around her. Something cracked inside Ember. She turned, wanting only to escape before anyone noticed her reaction. Then someone grabbed her arm. Kiera. Her childhood friend smiled at her, but the smile was sharp. "Stay." Ember froze. "You should see what happens when wolves who actually matter are chosen." "Kiera, did you really think he would choose you?" Kiera lowered her voice so only Ember could hear. "A broken omega with no scent, no rank, and no worth?" Her smile widened. "You've always been delusional, Ember." The words cut more deeply than claws. Then Rhys approached with one arm still around Kiera. He looked at Ember with an expression she couldn't read. Apology, perhaps. Or relief. "You understand, don't you?" Rhys said quietly. "I have responsibilities. This pack needs strong leadership. I can't." He made a helpless gesture. "I can't choose weakness." Ember understood. Perfectly. She ran. Behind her came laughter. Then whispers. Pathetic. Delusional. Broken omega. She locked herself inside her hovel and did not emerge for 3 days. That should have been the worst of it. Humiliating. Heartbreaking. But survivable. Then the children began disappearing. The first was Mira, a 5-year-old pup from a mid-ranking family. She had been playing near Moonshadow's eastern border when she vanished. The pack searched for days. They found nothing except a piece of torn clothing near the river. Within a week, 2 more children disappeared. Both came from families that had recently risen in rank. Both vanished near the territory's edges. Fear spread quickly. Patrols doubled. Parents refused to let their children wander alone. Then the elders began speaking of curses, omens, the blood moon beneath which Ember had been born. During one pack meeting, Elder Moira said the trouble had begun after Ember came of age. Ember was forbidden to attend, but she listened from the shadows. "The moon rejected her," Moira said. "Perhaps she has brought darkness upon us all." The whispers became louder after that. Then, 2 weeks before Ember's execution, Rhys and Kiera's mating ceremony was interrupted. Alpha Garrett stepped before the gathered wolves. His face was grave. "We have found evidence," he announced. "These disappearances are not random attacks. Someone inside this pack is working with rogues beyond our borders." The pack erupted in anger and fear. "Someone has betrayed us," Garrett continued, "and we believe we know who." His eyes moved across the gathering, then stopped on Ember. The broken omega, the wolf the moon had supposedly rejected, the one who lived alone, the one who never belonged. Ember felt the blood drain from her face. "No," she whispered. "I would never." Nobody listened. They searched her hovel. Beneath her sleeping mat, they found a torn piece of clothing belonging to one of the missing children. They found a map showing vulnerable places along Moonshadow's borders. They found a silver dagger, like those carried by rogues. Every piece of evidence had been planted. Every accusation was false. But truth mattered little when frightened wolves had already chosen someone to blame. That same night, they dragged Ember to the execution circle. Silver chains were wrapped around her wrists. The pack called for death. And Ember, exhausted after years of being rejected by wolves who had never wanted her, stopped resisting. She knelt. She was ready for everything to end. Then the Alpha King arrived. The silver chains fell away from Ember's wrists and struck the ground. For the first time, she saw the man who had ordered her release clearly. Cassian Shadowborn, Alpha King of every pack throughout the Northern Territories. He stood with the stillness of violence under perfect control. He was tall and broad-shouldered. Dark hair framed his face, touched with silver at the temples despite his relative youth. Scars crossed his exposed forearms, marks earned in battles he had survived. But Ember noticed his eyes most. Pale gold. Winter sunlight turned into flame. She wanted to look away. She couldn't. Alpha Garrett stepped forward and bowed. Your Majesty, we weren't expecting you. This is pack justice. The Omega betrayed us. She worked with rogues. She helped them take our children. Proof? Cassian's voice remained quiet. Garrett hesitated. We found evidence inside her dwelling. I asked for proof. Cassian's gaze remained on Ember. Not circumstances, not convenience. Proof that she personally committed these crimes. Garrett faltered. Cassian continued. Anything found inside an unguarded dwelling could have been placed there by anyone with access. He tilted his head. Tell me, Alpha Garrett, does this Omega possess enough strength to challenge your guards? Garrett said nothing. Could she overpower your patrols? Still nothing. Could she organize with rogues who would be more likely to kill a lone wolf than cooperate with one? Silence filled the clearing. She's weak, Elder Moira finally said. Perhaps that is why the rogues used her. She would have been easy to manipulate. Then she would be a victim, Cassian replied, not a perpetrator. For the first time, he looked away from Ember. His gaze swept over Moonshadow Pack. You nearly executed one of your own, based on fear and evidence that could easily have been planted. His voice hardened. Is this what Moonshadow Pack considers justice? No one answered. Cassian entered the circle. Ember forgot how to breathe as he approached. Every movement carried controlled power. He stopped directly in front of her. She had to raise her head to meet his eyes. Stand. Ember obeyed. Her legs trembled from days without enough food and from silver poisoning. She swayed. Cassian caught her. His hand closed around her arm with unexpected gentleness. The instant his skin touched hers, the strange sensation returned. A pull, recognition, something deeper than thought. Mate. The word exploded through Ember's mind. Cassian's eyes widened slightly. He had felt it too. That made no sense. Alpha Kings did not mate with broken, scentless Omegas. The world did not work that way. Cassian slowly released her. His expression became impossible to read. Then he faced Alpha Garrett. This Omega is under my protection. Anyone who harms her answers to me. His voice carried through the clearing. It was both promise and threat. I will investigate these disappearances myself, and if I discover that this pack participated in a false accusation to hide the real culprit. Cassian stopped. He didn't need to finish. Fear appeared in Garrett's eyes. The Alpha bowed deeply. Of course, Your Majesty. Anything you require. Cassian looked at Ember once more. Something complicated moved behind his golden eyes. Come, you're leaving. Ember wanted to demand an explanation. She wanted to ask why he cared. Why her? But no words came. She simply followed. She walked away from the wolves who had condemned her, and into the darkness beside the most powerful Alpha in the Northern Territories. Behind them, Moonshadow Pack watched in stunned silence. Their rejected Omega had been led away by the Alpha King himself. At the edge of the clearing, hidden inside the shadows, someone smiled. The game had only begun. Chapter 2. The Alpha King's Mercy. Cassian's temporary camp stood roughly a mile north of Moonshadow territory, hidden within a grove of ancient oak trees. Ember followed him in silence. Her bare feet bled against the rocky ground. Silver poison still made her body shake. She wanted to ask where he was taking her, what he expected from her. why he had saved her. But every question died before reaching her mouth. Alpha Kings did not rescue broken Omegas. Most barely noticed them. Yet Ember was walking behind Cassian Shadowborn through the night. The camp emerged between the trees. A dozen tents stood in an exact circle. Guards occupied carefully chosen positions. A low fire burned at the center. Every wolf moved with military discipline. Their strength made Ember's wolf retreat instinctively. These were members of the King's Guard. Elite warriors selected from packs across the northern territories. Powerful alphas and betas capable of tearing through ordinary rogues. Ember could barely remain in her shifted form for more than an hour. Now she stood among them. A massive beta approached Cassian. A scar ran along his jaw. "Your Majesty, we heard the disturbance. Should we—" Then he noticed Ember. Confusion crossed his expression. "Who is this?" "A guest," Cassian answered. He looked at the beta. "Thorn. Prepare the medical tent. She has silver poisoning." Thorn's eyebrows lifted slightly, but he bowed. "At once, Your Majesty." When Thorn left, Cassian turned toward Ember. Firelight sharpened the angles of his face. His cheekbones. His jaw. But Ember remained trapped by those golden eyes. "You're safe here," Cassian said. "No one will hurt you." At last Ember found her voice. "Why?" Cassian studied her. "Why what? Why did you save me? Why bring me here? Why any of this?" She gestured toward the camp and then toward herself. "I'm nothing. I have no rank, no scent, no worth. You're the Alpha King. None of this makes sense." Cassian watched her for several seconds. "When I entered that clearing and saw you kneeling there, do you know what I felt?" Ember shook her head. "Rage." His voice was soft. The word still carried the weight of thunder. Not at you, at them. At a pack so poisoned by hierarchy that it was willing to execute one of its own without a proper investigation, without a trial, without mercy. He stepped closer. Ember's breath caught. "You want to know why I saved you?" His eyes held hers. "The better question is why no one else did." The word struck harder than she expected. Years of isolation. Humiliation. Being treated as less than everyone around her. And a stranger, a king, was the first wolf who had ever asked why she deserved any of it. Heat gathered painfully behind Ember's eyes. She forced it back. "The medical tent is ready, Your Majesty," Thorn called. Cassian nodded. "Go, let them treat you. We'll speak again tomorrow." Ember remained still. "I don't understand what's happening." "Neither do I." For 1 second, vulnerability slipped through Cassian's expression. "But we'll understand it together." Then he walked toward the largest tent. Ember entered the medical tent. It smelled of herbs and clean linen. The scents were so unfamiliar after years inside her crude hovel that her instincts nearly made her retreat. A young woman with gentle eyes motioned toward a cot. She carried herself like a high-ranking beta. "Please sit. I'm Lyra, the king's healer." Her voice was calm and professional. "I need to treat the burns." Ember sat and extended her arms. The skin beneath the silver chains was blistered and torn. In several places, the metal had burned deeply into the flesh. The injuries should have hurt more. Perhaps Ember had simply become numb. Lyra cleaned the wounds and covered them with salves smelling of moonflower and wintergreen. Cool relief spread through Ember's arms. "You were fortunate," Lyra said. Ember almost laughed. Another hour wearing those chains and some of the damage might have been permanent. You could have lost movement in your hands. "Fortunate," Ember repeated. "Yes, that describes my life perfectly." Lyra paused. "The king doesn't rescue people without reason. Whatever happened tonight, whatever brought you here, it matters. It means I'm useful to whatever game he's playing." Lyra gave her a small smile. "You really don't know Cassian Shadowborn." Ember said nothing. "He doesn't play games. He doesn't turn people into pawns. If he brought you here, then he believes you deserve protection." Lyra tightened the final bandage. That matters. Ember wanted to argue. Kings always had motives. Power always had a price. But she was exhausted, tired of surviving, tired of wondering why everyone seemed to believe she deserved nothing. Rest, Lyra said. You're safe. Whatever happens tomorrow, at least you aren't waiting for execution. The standard was painfully low. But Ember supposed Lyra was right. She lay on the cot. Real bedding softened beneath her. She hadn't slept somewhere so comfortable in years. Outside, the camp settled into night. Guards changed positions. The central fire crackled. Quiet voices drifted between tents. And for the first time Ember could remember, she felt something almost resembling peace. The feeling frightened her. She woke to shouting. Ember sat upright. Her heart pounded. Dawn light filtered through the tent. Outside, two voices argued. This is absurd. You cannot possibly believe. I don't believe, Thorn. I know. Cassian. Cold. Commanding. And I do not need to defend my decisions to you or anyone else. Your Majesty, please. Be reasonable. She is an Omega. Not merely an Omega, a broken one. No rank. No scent. No. Enough. The single word silenced the camp. Question me again and you will lose your rank and return to your pack in disgrace. Ember moved carefully toward the tent opening. Cassian stood at the center of camp. His entire body was rigid with controlled fury. Thorn knelt before him. The other guards watched without expression. She stays, Cassian said. She is under my protection. His voice dropped. If anyone disagrees, challenge me yourself. No one moved. Cassian looked toward the medical tent. For one instant, his eyes met Ember's. She saw determination, and beneath it, something that almost looked like desperation. Then Cassian turned and walked away. Thorn rose slowly and headed in the opposite direction. Ember retreated into the tent. Of course they didn't want her there. She was an outsider. Weak. A political liability. Yet Cassian was defending her. Why? What could he possibly want? The bond inside her seemed to whisper an answer. Everything. Ember rejected the thought immediately. Mate bonds required compatibility, balance, mutual strength, mutual worth. She had none of those things. You're awake. Lyra entered carrying breakfast. Real bread. Cheese. Dried meat. Fresh water. Good. Eat. You need your strength back. Ember stared at the food. This is too much. It's breakfast. Lyra placed it beside her. King's orders. Everyone hates that I'm here. Lyra sat opposite her. I heard them. Thorn is protective of Cassian. He doesn't understand why the king would accept political complications for an Omega he doesn't know. He's not wrong. That doesn't make him right either. Lyra nodded toward the tray. Eat. Ember picked up the bread. Her fingers shook. The first bite was warm and soft. She had to fight the urge to devour everything immediately. Why is he doing this? Ember asked. There has to be a reason. Lyra hesitated. Can I ask you something personal? Ember nodded. When Cassian entered that execution circle, did you feel anything unusual? Warmth flared inside Ember's chest. She looked away. I don't know what you mean. I think you do. Lyra's voice stayed gentle. I've served Cassian for 5 years. I have never seen him behave this way. I have never seen him this unsettled. She paused. And the way he looks at you. He feels sorry for me. Cassian Shadowborn does not do pity. The tent opened before Ember could answer. Cassian entered. Lyra bowed and left immediately. Suddenly the tent seemed far too small. Cassian looked tired. Darkness shadowed the skin beneath his eyes. Tension tightened his shoulders. We need to talk. Ember put the food down. About what? What happened in the clearing? Cassian folded his arms. What you felt. What I felt. He leaned against the center support. Don't lie to me. I can hear your heartbeat. His eyes locked on hers. You felt the mate bond. Ember clenched her hands. It isn't real. Cassian's expression changed. What? It cannot be real. Her voice strengthened. Mate bonds don't happen like this. They require compatibility, balance, strength. I have nothing to offer you. No rank. No power. No political value. She swallowed. This has to be a mistake. Cassian walked closer and crouched until his eyes were level with hers. Do you know how many potential mates I've met during my 30 years? Ember stayed silent. Hundreds. Alphas from nearly every territory. Women selected for bloodline, political alliances, power, and genetics. His gaze burned. I felt nothing. He leaned slightly closer. Then I walk into a clearing and see a bleeding Omega kneeling for execution, and the bond strikes hard enough to stop my heart. Ember could barely breathe. You cannot want this. Her voice weakened. You cannot want me. I don't know exactly what I want yet, Cassian admitted, but I know what I felt. His voice lowered. And I know that watching them kill you would have torn something essential out of me. He slowly reached toward her, giving her time to move away. Ember didn't. Cassian brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. Electric warmth raced over her skin. You're my mate, Ember. Impossible or not, convenient or not, you are mine. His expression hardened with quiet certainty. And I protect what is mine. Tears burned Ember's eyes. She had spent years believing she was worthless. Now the most powerful alpha in the territories was claiming her. It felt less like salvation than a beautiful trap. I don't know how to be someone's mate. Her voice broke. I barely know how to be a wolf anymore. Then we learned together. Cassian stood and offered his hand. And we start by discovering who actually took those children, and who framed you. His eyes sharpened. Someone inside Moonshadow wanted you dead, Ember. He extended his hand farther. I intend to discover why. Ember stared at it. Scarred, powerful, steady. A hand capable of terrible violence. A hand that had saved her. Slowly, she placed her fingers inside his. The bond flared between them. For the first time in her life, Ember wondered whether she might actually possess value, even if she couldn't yet understand it. Outside the camp, someone watched from between the trees. Cold eyes followed the Alpha King's tent. The Omega had survived. Unexpected, but manageable. The watcher smiled and disappeared into the forest. The next stage could begin. Chapter 3. Shadows and Secrets. The investigation began at dawn. Cassian gathered his most trusted guards inside the command tent. Maps and reports covered the tables. The lingering scent of strong coffee filled the air. Ember stood awkwardly near the edge. She was the only Omega surrounded by powerful alphas and high-ranking betas. Thorn stood opposite her. His face remained controlled, but tension in his posture made his distrust obvious. Beside Thorn stood Dakota, a tall, lean alpha with silver streaks in her hair and sharp green eyes. Next to Dakota was Finn, a young beta barely into his 20s, who already carried a warrior's scars. Cassian spread a detailed map of Moonshadow territory across the table. 3 children disappeared during the past month. Mira Ashwood, 5 years old. Twins Jace and Lila Thornhart, 7. He pointed toward the Eastern Territory. All 3 disappeared near this border. Dakota studied the map. All 3 belonged to families recently promoted in rank. That suggests deliberate selection. A grudge against rising families, she continued, or an attempt to destabilize Moonshadow's hierarchy. Or someone knew those families would be distracted by their new positions, Finn added, celebrating instead of watching for danger. Cassian nodded. The evidence placed inside Ember's home was crude: Mira's torn clothing, a map of patrol routes, a rogue silver dagger. He looked around the table. Too crude. His finger tapped the map. Too obvious. Whoever framed her wanted Moonshadow to blame Ember before anyone examined the evidence properly. Thorn glanced toward her. Why? His suspicion remained. What makes her important? She's an Omega. Killing her would barely matter politically. Exactly, Cassian answered. His voice became quiet. She was the perfect target, isolated, powerless, rejected by her own pack. He looked directly at Thorn. Who would question her guilt? No one answered. Who would defend her? Again, silence. Ember wrapped her arms around herself. Even while Cassian defended her, she could feel everyone judging her. She wanted to help, but she knew nothing about investigations, nothing about strategy. Then a memory surfaced. The eastern border. Every wolf looked at her. Cassian raised one eyebrow. What about it? Ember swallowed. That's where Moonshadow assigned me to work. I spent months clearing fallen trees, maintaining boundary markers, checking old silver traps. Thorn frowned. And? I saw things. Ember moved toward the map. She pointed to a dense section of forest. There's an old cave system here. The elders said it was unstable, so the pack stopped using it. Cassian leaned closer. Continue. About 2 months ago, I started seeing fresh tracks near the entrance. What kind? Wolf tracks, but strange ones, deeper than normal. Ember frowned as she remembered. As if whoever made them was carrying something heavy. Cassian looked at her sharply. Did you report this? A bitter laugh escaped Ember. To whom? She looked around the tent. I was the broken Omega. Nobody listened to me. She remembered the patrol guard's face. I tried telling a border patrol. Her throat tightened. They told me to stop inventing stories for attention and return to work. Dakota exchanged a look with Cassian. Those caves would be ideal for holding prisoners, deep enough that screaming wouldn't travel outside. Isolated enough to avoid accidental discovery. Finn looked at the map. And that's exactly where the map planted inside Ember's dwelling pointed. His expression sharpened. Whoever framed her might have accidentally given us a genuine lead. Or intentionally, Thorn said. Everyone looked toward him. It could be a trap. Cassian straightened. Then we approach it as one. His command voice took over. Dakota, Finn. Scout the caves. Do not engage anyone. Observe and return. He looked at Thorn. Investigate the families of all 3 missing children. Find out who knew their schedules, routines, and movements. Thorn nodded. And you, Your Majesty? I'm returning to Moonshadow. Cassian's jaw tightened. Alpha Garrett and I need to discuss his definition of an investigation. I'm coming. The words escaped Ember before she reconsidered. The tent fell silent. Cassian slowly faced her. Ember. They tried to kill me. She heard unexpected steel in her own voice. They declared me guilty without a trial, without evidence, without allowing me to defend myself. She held Cassian's gaze. If you're confronting them about what happened, I have a right to be there. It's dangerous. Cassian sounded less certain than the words suggested. I have lived with danger my entire life. Ember didn't look away. This danger is simply easier to see. She pointed toward the map. I know Moonshadow. I know its wolves and how they think. I may notice something an outsider wouldn't. Dakota cleared her throat. She's right, Your Majesty. An inside perspective could help. Thorn visibly wanted to object. Cassian silenced him with one raised hand. Fine. He looked at Ember. But you remain near me. No wandering away, no unnecessary risks. Understood. Good. Cassian addressed everyone. You have your assignments. We move within the hour. Those children have been missing long enough. His expression hardened. We bring them home. The guards left. Soon Ember stood alone with Cassian. He watched her carefully. You didn't need to volunteer. I know. You could remain here. You would be safe. Ember looked at him. Safe isn't the same thing as free. Her voice softened. And I'm tired of hiding. Cassian's expression changed. You are stronger than you think. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't only power. Cassian stepped closer. His scent surrounded her, pine and winter storms. Strength is surviving when everything around you wants you dead, then standing again anyway. He lifted one hand toward her face. You have been strong your entire life. His palm rested against her cheek. No one ever bothered to tell you. The mate bond hummed between them. Warm. Persistent. Ember felt her wolf stir. Not from fear. Not from submission. Recognition. Longing. Cassian. She didn't know what she meant to say. He brushed his thumb over her cheek. I know you don't trust this. His voice softened. You don't trust me. You probably don't even trust yourself yet. He paused. But I need you to understand one thing. What? I will not allow anyone to hurt you again. His eyes grew fierce. Not Moonshadow. Not whoever framed you. Not even your own belief that you deserve less. His touch lingered. You're mine now. Then his voice dropped. And I protect what is mine. Before Ember could answer, Cassian stepped away. Get ready. We leave soon. He reached the tent entrance and stopped. Ember? Yes? Thank you for telling us about the caves. His expression became serious. You may have just saved those children. Then he disappeared outside. Ember stood alone. Her heart raced. The most powerful alpha in the Northern Territories had called her his. And slowly, impossibly, Ember was starting to believe he meant it. They traveled back toward Moonshadow on foot. Cassian moved through the forest effortlessly. Ember's weakened body struggled with every mile, but she refused to complain. At the border, 3 Beta Patrol wolves intercepted them. All 3 stiffened when they recognized Cassian. Then their faces changed again when they saw Ember walking beside him. Your Majesty. The patrol leader bowed so low his forehead almost touched the ground. We weren't informed. Alpha Garrett didn't know. I do not require permission to enter territory under my authority. Cassian's voice was cold. Take me to your Alpha. The wolves obeyed immediately. As Ember entered the village, people emerged from homes and workplaces to stare. The rejected Omega had returned from her execution alive. More shocking, she walked beside the Alpha King. Whispers followed her. How is she alive? The king saved her. Why? Maybe she really worked with the rogues. Maybe she seduced him. An Omega seducing the Alpha King? Ridiculous. Each whisper cut like a familiar knife. Ember kept walking. Back straight. Eyes forward. Then Cassian took her hand. His fingers intertwined with hers. The whispers stopped. Immediately. Alpha Garrett waited outside his lodge. This is unexpected, Your Majesty. He bowed. If you had sent notice, we would have prepared. I'm not here for a welcome. Cassian stepped toward him. I'm here because you nearly executed an Omega without conducting a real investigation. Garrett's jaw tightened. With respect, this is an internal pack matter. It stopped being internal when you made yourself judge, jury, and executioner. Cassian's voice grew dangerous. 3 children are missing. You found convenient evidence implicating the most vulnerable wolf under your authority. Instead of examining alternatives, you moved straight to execution. His eyes narrowed. Why? The evidence was clear. The evidence was planted. Garrett stiffened. Cassian released Ember's hand. His dominance spread through the area. Wolves nearby lowered their heads instinctively. So I will ask you again. Cassian moved closer. Why were you so eager to blame her? Garrett tried to answer. Then his shoulders lowered. The pack was afraid. He swallowed. Angry. They needed someone to blame, someone to punish. His gaze shifted toward Ember. The Omega was convenient. Ember stared at him. Convenient? Her voice shook with fury. You were going to kill me because it was convenient? You have no rank, Garrett snapped. His control broke. No influential family, no allies who would demand vengeance or create political problems. He lifted his chin. Yes, you were convenient. Then he added, leaders sometimes make difficult choices for the greater good. Cassian moved so quickly Ember barely saw him. One moment he stood beside her. The next, Garrett was pinned against the lodge wall with Cassian's hand around his throat. The greater good? Cassian's voice became terrifyingly soft. Does not include murdering innocent wolves to calm a frightened mob. Garrett struggled for air. You are Alpha of Moonshadow. Your duty is to protect every member. Cassian tightened his grip. Not only the powerful. His eyes flashed. Not only the convenient. All of them. Your Majesty. Please. Cassian released him. Garrett stumbled. You are fortunate I do not remove your title now. Cassian looked at him with disgust. The only reason you remain Alpha is because Moonshadow requires leadership while those children are missing. He turned toward Ember. Show me the caves. Ember nodded. As she turned, she noticed someone near the side entrance. Kiera. Her former friend stared at Ember. Something strange showed in her eyes. Fear? Guilt? Before Ember could decide, Kiera disappeared into the lodge. Ember? Cassian's voice pulled her back. Are you all right? Yes. She lied. Let's go. As they headed toward the eastern border, Ember couldn't escape one thought. Someone inside Moonshadow wanted the children gone. Someone wanted Ember dead. And she was beginning to believe the two things were connected. The question was why, and who. Chapter 4. The Cave of Truths. Moonshadow's eastern border was a place of deep shadows. Ancient trees crowded together so tightly that very little sunlight touched the ground. Ember had spent countless hours there during years of unwanted labor. Now she returned with the Alpha King beside her and armed guards surrounding them. Everything felt different. Perhaps the forest had not changed. Perhaps Ember had. How much farther? Cassian asked. Beyond that ridge. Ember pointed toward a rocky rise covered in moss and vines. The entrance is behind an old rockfall. Most wolves don't know the cave system exists anymore. Dakota and Finn had already completed their reconnaissance. The signs confirmed Ember's suspicion. Fresh tracks. Disturbed vegetation. And the faint scent of frightened young wolves. The children had been there. Maybe they still were. Cassian ordered the guards to form a perimeter. Then he looked at Ember. You remain here with 2 guards while we enter. No. Cassian frowned. Ember. The children know me. She stepped closer. I used to help at the nursery before they decided I wasn't useful there. Pain flickered through her expression, but she continued. If those children are frightened or injured, they may respond to someone familiar more easily than armed strangers. Cassian's protective instinct clearly fought with the logic of her argument. Dakota emerged from the trees. She has a point. Cassian looked at her. Traumatized children often shut down around aggressive energy. An Omega might calm them. Cassian exhaled. Fine. His gaze returned to Ember. But you remain behind me. If I order you to run, you run. No argument? None. Ember nodded. They approached the hidden opening. From a distance, the rockfall looked natural. Up close, Ember could see that someone had arranged parts of it deliberately, leaving an opening large enough for a wolf to pass while keeping it hidden from anyone walking nearby. The smell struck as soon as they entered. Fear. Waste. Sickness. And beneath everything, the sweet, heavy smell of sedating herbs. Someone had drugged the children. A low growl came from Cassian. His eyes brightened with his wolf's golden glow. His canines lengthened. The tunnel descended steeply. Dark stone closed around them. Ember's breathing accelerated, but Cassian remained directly ahead of her. Solid, controlled, protective. They entered a larger cavern. Ember stopped. 3 small figures huddled against the wall. Silver-coated chains bound their wrists and ankles. Burns covered their skin. Mira lay unconscious. Her breathing was shallow. Jace and Lila were awake, but their eyes were unfocused from drugs. Gods, Finn whispered. Cassian approached slowly. His partial shift receded so he would appear less threatening. You're safe, he told them. We're taking you home. The twins recoiled. They whimpered. Wait! Ember moved around Cassian. She kept her steps slow. Jace? Lila? Their eyes moved toward her. It's Ember. She crouched. Do you remember me? I used to tell you stories in the nursery about the moon goddess and the first wolves. Jace blinked. Recognition appeared slowly. Ember? Yes. She smiled despite the pain inside her. I'm here. Lila began crying. Mama. I know, sweetheart. Ember knelt beside them. We're taking you back to her. Her healing wrists accidentally brushed the silver chains. Pain burned through her arms. She ignored it. We need to remove these first. Can you both stay brave a little longer? Dakota pulled on silver-resistant gloves and began unlocking the chains. Lyra, who had accompanied the group to provide medical care, examined Mira. She has been heavily sedated. Anger tightened the healer's voice. Dehydrated too, malnourished. She needs to return to camp immediately. Cassian's fury seemed to fill the cavern. Still, his voice remained gentle when he gave orders. Finn, carry Mira. Dakota, help the twins. He looked around the cave. We leave now. As the guards lifted the children, Ember noticed markings on the stone wall. Scratches. Not random scratches. Deliberate carvings. She stepped closer. Numbers. Dates. Names. Not only the 3 children they had found. Many more. Names stretched back almost 2 years. Cassian. Her voice shook. You need to see this. He appeared beside her. His eyes moved across the wall. Confusion became horror. Then something much colder. This didn't begin this month, he said. Ember continued reading. These are Omegas. Her finger followed the names. And low-ranking pups. Children whose disappearance would draw less attention. Families without enough influence to force serious investigations. Dakota stepped closer. This is organized. Her voice was cold. Someone has been taking children from Moonshadow for years. Finn stared at the names. But why would anyone? Then, realization hit him. His face paled. The slave networks. Ember's stomach turned. Rogue trafficking networks were whispered about throughout Wolf Society. Criminal organizations dealing in weapons, territory, and people. Omegas were particularly valuable because many could not defend themselves effectively. Children were worth even more. Easier to transport, easier to control, easier to break. We return to Moonshadow, Cassian said. His voice had become deadly calm. Garrett has questions to answer. He looked once more at the names. And if he is involved. The unfinished threat was enough. They left the cavern. The rescued children were wrapped in blankets and carried by the guards. Ember's thoughts raced. Whoever had organized this possessed authority. Enough authority to approach children without causing suspicion. Enough power to conceal disappearances. Perhaps an alpha, perhaps a beta. When they emerged into the fading afternoon, someone was waiting. Reese. 3 beta wolves from Moonshadow's inner circle stood behind him. Your Majesty. Reese bowed. Alpha Garrett sent us to help. We heard you found the children. Cassian stared at him. How convenient. Reese stiffened. You arrive exactly when we're leaving. Cassian's gaze shifted toward the betas. And how interesting that Garrett knew exactly where to send you. The pack has searched this region for weeks. Reese answered. When scouts reported your people moving this direction, we assumed. You assumed we needed assistance? Dakota cut in. Her green eyes narrowed. Or you needed to make sure certain evidence never returned to the village? The wolves behind Reese moved uneasily. Hands drifted toward weapons. Cassian growled. Low. Warning. I wouldn't. Every beta froze. My guards outnumber you, outrank you, and currently possess less patience than I do. We didn't come to fight, Rhys said quickly. He raised both hands. We came to help. Those pups belong to our pack. We want them safe. Excellent. Cassian smiled. The expression frightened Ember more than anger. Then you won't object to accompanying us back to Alpha Garrett so we can discuss how children disappeared for 2 years without Moonshadow leadership noticing. Rhys paled. 2 years? Cassian stepped closer. That cave contains names and dates proving children have been systematically taken for 2 years. His dominance increased. So you will come with us. Cassian's gaze hardened. You will answer every question honestly. A pause. Or I will assume you participated. Rhys's face changed from shock to fear. Then resignation. I didn't know. His voice became quiet. I swear on my wolf. I knew about the 3 recent disappearances. I thought it was a new threat. Dakota finished the thought. Not evidence of a conspiracy. Rhys nodded. The return journey was tense. The King's Guard protected the rescued children. Rhys and his betas walked under observation, though no one formally called them prisoners. Ember stayed beside Cassian. How could nobody notice? She finally asked. Cassian looked at her. How could children disappear for years without anyone caring? Because they were the wrong children. Disgust filled his voice. Low-ranking, powerless, easy for wolves like Garrett to consider expendable. His hand found Ember's. The way they considered you expendable. Ember's throat tightened. If you hadn't come that night. But I did. Cassian tightened his fingers around hers. And now we make sure no one is considered expendable again. Night had fallen when they reached the village. Moonshadow Pack crowded into the central square. Parents pushed through the crowd. When they saw their children alive, cries of relief filled the darkness. But fear quickly followed. Something far larger was wrong. Alpha Garrett stood on the lodge steps. His face remained composed. His eyes did not. Ember saw calculation there. He was already preparing an explanation. Cassian gave him no opportunity. Gather your council. His command echoed across the square. Every elder, every beta with authority, every wolf who can access pack records, finances, patrol routes, or territory assignments. Garrett stiffened. We are holding a trial tonight. Your Majesty, perhaps morning would be more appropriate. Give everyone time to... Tonight. One word ended the argument. Every delay gives the guilty wolves time to destroy evidence or escape. Cassian's gaze swept across Moonshadow. And if anyone runs, I will personally hunt them down and return them in chains. Garrett bowed reluctantly. As you command. As wolves scattered to obey, Cassian leaned toward Ember. Stay near me. Why? We're about to tear apart everything this pack believes about itself. His eyes moved toward the lodge. Whoever is responsible will become desperate. I'm not afraid. Cassian gave her a small, knowing smile. You should be. Then he looked toward Moonshadow's leaders gathering inside. Because I suspect the monster we're hunting was never hiding in the darkness. His expression turned cold. It has been standing in plain sight. Chapter 5. The Trial of Wolves. Moonshadow's lodge became a courtroom. Long tables formed a wide U. Alpha Garrett sat near the center with 5 elders beside him. 10 members of the Beta Council occupied the remaining seats. At the head of the room, Cassian sat on the ceremonial platform like a judge. Ember stood beside him. Every wolf watched her. The broken Omega they had expected to execute now stood at the Alpha King's right hand. Her presence challenged nearly every rule Moonshadow valued. Cassian allowed the murmuring to continue for several seconds. Then he spoke. We begin with facts. Silence followed. 3 children disappeared during the past month. He looked toward the council. Evidence was planted inside Ember's home. That evidence resulted in a false accusation and almost resulted in her execution. Several wolves shifted uneasily. Today we found those 3 children alive inside caves near your eastern border. A few relieved breaths moved through the room. Cassian continued. Those caves also contain evidence connected to more than 20 kidnappings during the past 2 years. The room erupted. Impossible. 2 years? We would have noticed. A growl from Cassian stopped everyone. You did not notice. His voice hardened. Or you chose not to notice. He leaned forward. Children under your protection were kidnapped, drugged, chained, and hidden, while your leadership focused its energy on killing an innocent Omega, because that was easier than finding the truth. Elder Moira leaned forward. If what you're saying is true, Cassian's gaze sharpened. I'm not saying I accept it yet, but if it is true, then whoever concealed these crimes possessed significant access. She looked around the council. This cannot be ordinary rogue activity. No, Dakota said from the doorway. This was internal. Finn nodded. The question is who possessed authority, access, and motive. And who profited, Dakota added. Slowly, the room's attention moved toward Garrett. His face went blank. Too blank. You cannot seriously believe I would harm children from my own pack. Cassian's voice remained soft. Why not? Garrett stared at him. You were willing to kill Ember without conducting a legitimate investigation. Cassian leaned back. You already demonstrated that fear can matter more to you than justice. His golden gaze did not move. Why should anyone assume trafficking children is beyond your moral limits? Because I am the Alpha. Garrett struck the table. This pack is everything to me. The pack? Thorn stepped forward. He carried a rolled parchment. Or its reputation. He opened the document. The records recovered from the cave show that nearly every child taken before this month was either an Omega or low-ranking. His voice sharpened. Children whose families could not create political problems. He spread another sheet across the table. Names. Dates. Amounts of gold. The lodge became silent. These are payment records. Thorn looked at Garrett. 23 children across 2 years. His finger moved along the entries. Each child sold to rogue networks. Gasps spread across the room. The payments were large enough to noticeably increase pack funds. Thorn's eyes remained on Garrett. Funds under your authority. Garrett's face lost color. I have never seen those records. His voice shook. Someone is framing me just as they framed Ember. These ledgers weren't placed conveniently in your house, Dakota said. They were hidden inside a concealed compartment in the caves. She pointed at the handwriting. And portions appear consistent with official Moonshadow documentation. Several council members looked at one another. Elder Moira slowly stood. If this is true, Garrett. Her voice trembled. If you sold children belonging to this pack, I didn't. Garrett slammed both hands against the table. Yes, I knew some children had vanished. Ember stared at him. Yes, I allowed investigations involving lower-ranking families to become less important than other pack matters. His voice became desperate. But I never sold anyone. He looked at Cassian. Someone else is doing this. Someone wants to destroy me. Then name them. Cassian's command landed heavily. Who else can access pack finances? No answer. Who has territory records? Silence. Who can travel throughout Moonshadow without being questioned? The room seemed to contract. Then Reese spoke. The Beta Council. Everyone turned toward him. We all have access. His voice remained quiet. Any one of us could have done it. 10 pairs of eyes shifted. Some angry, some frightened. A stocky beta named Garrick stood. You accuse us? He glared at Reese. I've served Moonshadow for 30 years. Then his face changed. My daughter. He stopped. My Sarah disappeared months ago. His voice broke. We thought she had run away with a rogue male. He looked toward Thorn. You're telling me she could have been taken? Thorn checked the ledger. His expression became grim. Sarah Ironhide. Garrick stopped breathing. 15 years old. Low-ranking Omega. Thorne swallowed. Taken 7 months ago. His eyes lifted. Sold for 200 gold pieces to a rogue organization in the Western Territories. Garrick howled. The sound shook the lodge. He lunged across the table at Garrett. 2 council members restrained him. You sold my daughter. I didn't. My child. Garrick fought against the wolves holding him. She was 15. I swear I didn't know. Garrett stumbled backward. Cassian raised one hand. His dominance forced silence. Someone here is responsible. He looked around the room. The ledgers established that. His attention shifted to Garrett. But Garrett is correct about one thing. Several wolves stiffened. One wolf could not maintain an operation like this alone. Cassian stood. Someone identified targets. He slowly walked across the platform. Someone carried out kidnappings. Another step. Someone handled transactions with rogues. His eyes moved from face to face. And someone concealed the evidence. Fear entered the room. Cassian stopped. Every council member will submit to questioning. A few wolves protested. Your movements during the past 2 years will be verified. Your personal finances will be inspected. He looked at the doors. If anyone refuses, hides records, or attempts to leave Moonshadow territory, I will treat that wolf as guilty until proven otherwise. One elder stood angrily. You cannot strip us of our rights. Cassian's eyes went cold. You surrendered your claim to comfort when children were sold beneath your watch. His voice dropped. Be grateful I am investigating before executing. Ember had remained silent. Something about the ledger bothered her. She reached toward it. May I? Cassian nodded. She spread the parchment before herself. Names. Dates. Gold amounts. Then Ember saw a pattern. The disappearances increased. Dakota moved closer. Ember traced the dates. During the first year, only 4 children disappeared. At least 3 months separated each case. Her finger moved lower. But 19 were taken during the most recent 6 months. Desperation, Dakota said. Or demand, Finn added. Maybe both. Ember continued studying the list. And look at the final 3. She pointed. Mira, Jace, Lila. Cassian leaned toward her. All 3 belonged to families that recently gained rank. The earlier victims were deliberately low profile, Ember said. The last 3 weren't. Cassian understood. They were meant to attract attention. Or create chaos, Ember replied. Her thoughts moved faster. When children from powerful families vanish, everyone responds. Patrols double. Parents demand investigations. Leadership panics. Thorne nodded slowly. And while everyone watches the new cases, nobody reopens the old ones. Dakota's expression hardened. A distraction. Finn frowned. For what? Ember returned to the ledger. Then she saw a note written in different ink, added after the earlier entries. She read it quietly. Final shipment before termination. Close operation. Eliminate evidence. Cold spread through her. They planned to stop. Cassian looked at her. But first they needed one final crisis. Ember's breathing changed. Suddenly she understood. Me. The room became silent. The evidence inside my hovel. She looked at Cassian. The rushed accusation. The immediate execution. Her eyes widened. They needed me dead before anyone began asking serious questions. Cassian's jaw tightened. I wasn't merely convenient. Ember remembered the eastern border. I was evidence. Why? Cassian asked. Ember closed her eyes briefly. I worked near those caves for months. She opened them. I noticed tracks. Disturbed ground. I tried reporting it. Her voice weakened. What if someone realized I had seen more than I understood? Dakota's face darkened. An Omega nobody listens to is harmless. She looked toward the council, until she starts noticing the right things. Reese had been quiet. Now his face changed. Kiera. Ember turned. Reese looked sick. She was one of the wolves who found the evidence in Ember's hovel. His voice tightened. She brought it directly to my father. Ember's heart stopped for a second. And she pushed harder than anyone for an immediate execution. Cassian stood. Where is she? Reese looked around the lodge. Panic entered his eyes. She was supposed to attend the trial. He searched the room. I haven't seen her. The doors crashed open. Lyra stumbled inside. Blood ran from a wound along her temple. Your Majesty. Cassian was moving before she finished. The children. Lyra struggled for breath. Someone attacked the medical tent. Everyone ran. They found chaos outside. 2 guards lay unconscious. Silver chains covered the ground. The rescued children were gone. Again. No. Ember stared at the empty cots. No, no, no. Dakota crouched outside. Tracks. Cassian joined her. 2 wolves, carrying weight, heading west. A roar tore from Cassian. Thorn! Half the guard seals the eastern border. He turned. Dakota. Finn. With me. Then he faced Garrick. You want justice for your daughter? The grieving Beta nodded. Help me stop this now. Cassian turned toward Ember. You remain here. No. Ember. They're heading west. She interrupted him. Toward the abandoned silver mines. Cassian looked sharply at her. There are tunnels beneath them. More than a dozen exits. Her voice became urgent. If they reach those mines, you may never find them. How do you know? Because I worked there too. A bitter memory crossed her face. Before Moonshadow decided I was too weak even for mining. She stepped toward Cassian. I know those tunnels better than anyone. His protective instinct fought across his face. Ember did not move. You need me. Finally, Cassian nodded. Stay near me. I will. Stay safe. I'll try. If I tell you to run, I run. A tiny smile touched Ember's mouth. Now let's bring those children back. They disappeared into the night. Behind them, almost invisible against one tent pole, hung a small piece of fur. Russet. Alpha fur. Kiera's. The monster had never merely hidden among Moonshadow. Moonshadow had celebrated her. Chapter 6. The Mines of Betrayal. The western edge of Moonshadow territory was scarred by abandoned industry. Decades earlier, silver mines had brought enormous wealth to the pack. The veins had run dry 20 years before Ember's birth. Now collapsed shafts and decaying structures covered the ground. Beneath them stretched miles of tunnels. A perfect place to disappear, or a perfect place for a trap. Ember led the hunting group through the darkness. Her years of unwanted labor suddenly mattered. She knew where the unstable ground lay, where old shafts could collapse, which paths connected to hidden entrances. Cassian followed close behind. His partial shift showed beneath his skin, violence barely contained. Dakota and Finn moved near them. Garrick came with 3 council wolves whose horror and grief had convinced Cassian they were not part of the operation. The main entrance is ahead. Ember pointed at a black opening in the hillside. Old support beams leaned like broken bones. There are at least 8 other usable exits. Cassian looked into the darkness. They know we're coming. Dakota nodded. They probably heard us long before we reached this place. This is a trap, Cassian said. Then we enter carefully. Dakota turned toward Finn. Take Garrick and circle north. Seal the northern exits. We'll push them east if they run. Those tunnels are unstable, so escape options are limited. Finn nodded. He and the others vanished into the dark. Cassian turned toward Ember. He touched her face. The gentleness of the gesture clashed with the predator inside his eyes. Last chance. Ember already knew what he would say. You stay here and guard the entrance. and allow you to enter tunnels you've never seen while hunting wolves desperate enough to kidnap children twice? Ember covered his hand. No. Cassian looked at her. We do this together. The mate bond warmed between them. Something changed in Cassian's face. Not defeat. Trust. Together. He lowered his hand. But you remain between Dakota and me. They entered. The darkness became absolute. Only faintly glowing cave fungi offered light. The smell of earth and decay surrounded them. Old silver still lingered in the rock. Not enough to kill them, but enough to make every wolf instinct scream caution. Then Ember heard something. Footsteps. Whispering. A child whimpering. This way. She led them down a narrow side passage. The tunnel sloped deeper. Soon they were forced into single file. Ember's heart hammered. The walls pressed too close. Silver filled the air. Every instinct warned her to escape. But the children were somewhere ahead. They entered another chamber. Ember froze. The place had been turned into a prison. Silver chains hung from walls. Cages lined one side. At the center of the chamber lay Mira, Jace, and Lila, bound, gagged, terrified. But it was the wolves standing above them who shattered Ember's understanding of everything. Kiera, beautiful Kiera, russet-haired, alpha-born, and beside her stood Reese. His expression contained none of the uncertainty or kindness Ember remembered, only cold calculation. No, Ember's voice barely existed. Reese? She stared at him. You were with us. You helped us. Reese smiled faintly. I delayed you. Ember's blood turned cold. That gave Kiera enough time to bring the children here and prepare this meeting. He shook his head. You always were too trusting, Ember. His tone became cruel. Too desperately hopeful. Cassian growled. You. His fury filled the chamber. You're responsible. Responsible? Kiera smiled. Nothing remained of the childhood girl Ember remembered. We're intermediaries, Your Majesty. Her eyes glittered. The operation is far larger than Moonshadow. Cassian understood. The rogue networks. Exactly. You supplied them with children. Product, Kiera corrected. Ember felt physically sick. Kiera continued. You noble wolves talk about honor, protection, justice. She shrugged. Real power is about control and resources. Her gaze moved toward the children. Young wolves are valuable resources. They can be trained, broken, resold. Ember stared at her. You were my friend. Kiera laughed. The sound echoed against stone. Friend? She looked genuinely amused. I was never your friend. Ember flinched despite herself. You were useful. Kiera stepped closer. Standing next to you made everyone else look stronger. Her smile sharpened. The pathetic Omega, the broken girl, the wolf everyone could compare themselves against and feel superior. Ember's stomach twisted. Then you started working near the eastern caves. Kiera's expression changed. You noticed tracks. Disturbed areas. You began asking questions. Ember understood. So you framed me. 2 problems solved at once. Kiera nodded. A convenient suspect and a potential witness removed together. And when my execution failed, we adapted. Reese took a step forward. We knew taking the children again would bring the king after us. His eyes moved toward Cassian. You both wanted to be heroes so badly. Ember looked at the children. You used them as bait. Cassian's voice was almost frighteningly calm. You traumatized those pups again merely to lure us here. Kiera shrugged. They're low-ranking. Garrick was not there to hear it. Perhaps that was fortunate. They would have been sold eventually. Kiera smiled. At least now they're useful. Dakota attacked. She moved faster than Ember could follow. Her claws extended toward Kiera. At the same instant, hidden wolves poured from alcoves around the chamber. Rogues. At least 12. The trap closed. Cassian fully shifted. Power exploded through the room. He crashed into the first attacker. Bone and flesh gave way beneath his strength. Dakota fought beside him. Precise. Lethal. But rogues continued emerging from side tunnels. Then Ember saw Reese. He was moving toward the children, a silver dagger in his hand. She understood instantly. They were going to kill the pups, destroy the last witnesses, eliminate the evidence. No. Something inside Ember changed. Not broke. Changed. Every insult she had endured, every year of being called weak, every humiliation, every rejection, every moment of helplessness, all of it became one purpose. Protect them. Ember ran. She slammed into Reese with everything she had. The impact sent both of them across the stone floor. Shock flashed across Reese's face. The broken Omega had attacked him. Ember, what are you? He tried throwing her away. She held on. Desperation gave her strength she had never known. Her teeth found his throat, not deeply enough to kill him. Enough to draw blood. Enough to make him scream. Stay away from them. Her voice barely sounded human. Reese struck her. Ember flew into the wall. Pain exploded through her ribs. Something cracked. She forced herself upright, then stood between Reese and the children. You stupid Omega. Blood covered his throat. You think one brave act changes anything? He took another step. You're still nothing. Ember remained between him and the pups, still weak. Cassian roared. The sound shook dust from the ceiling. He had seen Reese strike Ember. Whatever restraint remained inside the Alpha King disappeared. Cassian tore through the rogues in front of him. Kiera saw the battle turning. She transformed. Her russet wolf was magnificent. Powerful. Then she ran. Coward! Garrick's voice echoed from one of the tunnels. He had reached them from another entrance. He chased Kiera. 2 council wolves followed. The remaining rogues began fleeing. Those who stayed were overwhelmed by Cassian and Dakota. Reese tried to escape after Kiera. Dakota caught his leg. She dragged him back across the stone floor. Ember ignored the battle. She crawled toward the children. Her ribs screamed with every movement. Her hands shook as she worked at their restraints. Mira began waking. It's all right, Ember whispered. You're safe. The little girl blinked. Ember? I'm here. Cassian appeared beside them. He shifted back enough to use his hands. You're hurt. I'm fine. Your ribs are broken. I'm fine. Cassian looked at her. Whatever he saw convinced him not to argue. Together they removed the remaining restraints. Dakota produced blankets and wrapped the children. Soon Garrick returned. He dragged an unconscious Kiera in wolf form by the scruff. The other council members brought 2 captured rogues. The others? Cassian asked. Dead or escaped? Garrick's breathing remained heavy. But we have 3 prisoners. Reese knelt under silver restraints. Blood still ran from Ember's bite. Without his authority and arrogance, he suddenly looked smaller, cornered. You're going to kill me, Reese said. Eventually, Cassian answered. Reese stared at him. But first, you will tell me everything. Cassian crouched. Names, contacts, locations. Every detail of the trafficking network operating across my territories. His eyes hardened. You will help me destroy it. And if I refuse? Cassian smiled. Ember had never seen anything so terrifying. I give you to Garrick. The grieving father smiled as well, all teeth. He has been waiting patiently to meet the wolves who sold his daughter. Cassian straightened. I suspect that patience is ending. Reese went pale. I want protection. Dakota laughed coldly. You still think you can negotiate? I can provide names. Reese looked desperately toward Cassian. Safe houses. Operations. But I want immunity. You will speak, Dakota said, because what happens if you refuse will be worse. As they prepared to leave, Cassian stopped Ember. His hand rested on her shoulder. She turned. He pulled her against him. His forehead touched hers. You were incredible. Ember looked away. I didn't think. You protected those children. His voice roughened. You attacked a beta 3 times your size. He cupped her face. I have never seen anything braver. I was scared. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. His golden eyes held hers. You proved that strength has nothing to do with rank. The bond flared. You proved what I already knew. His thumb brushed her cheek. You are extraordinary, Ember. Tears filled her eyes. For once, not because someone had hurt her, because hope was becoming harder to reject. They emerged from the mines beneath the first light of dawn. The children were safe again. The traitors were in chains. Moonshadow would have to answer for years of negligence. The trafficking network still existed beyond the pack. There would be more investigations, more consequences, more pain. But that morning, 3 children were alive. And Ember, once condemned as Moonshadow's weakest wolf, walked beside the Alpha King rather than behind him. The reckoning had only begun. For the first time, Ember allowed herself to imagine that perhaps she had a future. Chapter 7. The Reckoning. The trials of Reese Blackwater and Kiera Nightshade lasted 3 days. Cassian ordered Moonshadow Pack to gather in the central square each morning. No wolf was exempt. Not elders. Not council members. Not even the lowest-ranked Omegas who were usually expected to remain invisible. Everyone would see what justice looked like, and everyone would see what happened when justice was ignored. Ember stood beside Cassian throughout the proceedings. Her presence carried a message stronger than words. A wolf Moonshadow had considered disposable now stood beside the king. On the first day, Reese talked. For hours. His voice remained flat while he explained how 23 children had been taken over 2 years. He gave names of rogue contacts, payment arrangements, safe houses where children were held before transport. Officials in other packs who accepted money to ignore suspicious activity. It began with 1 child, Reese said. An Omega whose family had no influence. Garrick stared at him. Kiera approached me. She said the rogue networks paid well for young wolves. Reese lowered his eyes. She called it victimless. Garrick's body trembled. Victimless? My Sarah had a name. His voice broke with rage. She sang constantly. He swallowed. She wanted to become a healer. Garrick leaned forward. Explain how stealing her was victimless. Reese flinched. He had no answer. Continue, Cassian ordered. The money was good. Reese stared at the ground. Better than good. His shame deepened. We used it for territory improvements, weapons, expansion. He hesitated. Kiera wanted enough influence and resources to challenge for an alpha position. Then Reese looked toward Ember. When you started noticing things near the eastern border, you became a problem. Dakota's expression turned hard. So you decided to kill her. Kiera decided. Reese's voice cracked. I just went along with it. Elder Moira looked at him with disgust. Coward. Reese glared at her. You want to judge me? Something like his old fire returned. You sat comfortably inside your lodge and never asked where Moonshadow's new wealth came from. Moira went still. You never asked why children from weaker families vanished. His voice became bitter. You looked away because looking away was convenient. The accusation silenced her. Cassian's expression did not soften. Everyone who deliberately looked away carries guilt. His gaze swept across the pack. But that does not change what you and Kiera built. He looked at Reese. You are responsible for your own choices. On the second day, Kiera was questioned. She did not collapse like Reese. She stood in chains with her head raised. Defiant. I did what was necessary to rise. No remorse touched her voice. This pack values strength. She looked around at everyone. I demonstrated strength. Cassian's eyes narrowed. You sold children. I took opportunities. Kiera's smile was cold. I removed obstacles. Her gaze moved toward Ember. That is what alphas do. No. Cassian's response was immediate. Alphas protect. Kiera laughed softly. Do they? She looked directly at him. You rule the Northern Territories. How many wolves have suffered because solving their problems was inconvenient for you? A murmur moved through the crowd. How many wolves have you sacrificed for what you called the greater good? Kiera tilted her head. Don't pretend we're so different, Your Majesty. Cassian's jaw tightened. Ember saw something move in his expression. Not guilt. Recognition of the weight leadership carried. Then Cassian answered. The difference is that I remember every wolf I failed. Silence. I lose sleep over choices that hurt others. His voice became colder. You see children as currency and feel nothing. Feelings don't change reality, Kiera replied. Moonshadow is weakening, territory shrinks, resources disappear. She lifted her chin. I found a way to secure its future. By selling children. Garrick surged toward her. Guards restrained him. You sold Sarah? His voice broke. She was 15. Kiera barely looked at him. She was low-ranking and weak. Garrick stopped struggling. The crowd seemed to stop breathing. She would have consumed pack resources her entire life. Kiera shrugged. I gave her purpose. The square exploded. Parents screamed. Wolves howled for blood. Several surged toward the platform. Cassian raised one hand. His dominance rolled across the square like a physical wave. Every wolf dropped. There will be justice. His voice carried through the silence. But it will be lawful. Cassian looked across Moonshadow. We will not become monsters merely because monsters lived among us. Gradually, the crowd settled. Kiera Nightshade. She faced him. You are found guilty of conspiracy, kidnapping, trafficking of minors, attempted murder, and treason against your pack. Kiera's face remained defiant. Cassian spoke the sentence. Death. For the first time, Kiera broke. Wait. Fear flashed across her face. I have information. Cassian said nothing. Contacts in other packs. Other operations. We have Reese, Dakota said. We don't need you. Kiera looked toward Cassian. I can give you everything. Her voice became desperate. Please. Cassian watched her without sympathy. You gave no mercy to the children you sold. He paused. You receive none. Kiera began screaming as the guards dragged her away. Execution takes place tomorrow at sunset. Ember expected satisfaction. Instead, she felt empty. On the third day, Moonshadow decided Reese's sentence. Because he had cooperated, and because his information could help destroy larger trafficking networks, Cassian gave the pack two choices: execution, or permanent exile under a tracking collar, a lone wolf for the rest of his life. Death would be kinder, Thorne observed. Wolves are not meant to live alone. That is why exile is an option, Cassian answered. The vote came quickly. Exile. Let Reese live. Let him wake every day knowing what he had chosen. Let him remember everything he had lost. When Reese heard the decision, relief briefly crossed his face. Perhaps part of him had wanted death. Exile demanded survival. Before the guards took him away, Reese asked to speak to Ember. I'm sorry. She looked at him. I'm sorry I never defended you. His voice was exhausted. I'm sorry I chose ambition over what was right. Ember searched for manipulation. She saw only regret. I don't forgive you. Reese nodded. But I hope someday you learn how to forgive yourself. His eyes lifted. Because living with what you did may be worse than exile. Reese lowered his head. Then the guards led him away. At sunset, Moonshadow gathered for Kiera's execution. Pack tradition allowed execution by combat. Alpha Garrett initially possessed the right to carry out the sentence as pack leader. Before he could accept, Garrick stepped forward. I challenge for executioner's right, the square murmured. Garrick stood beneath the fading light. She sold my daughter. His face carried grief that would never completely disappear. I claim a father's right to vengeance. The request was unusual. Garrick was a beta. Kiera had been alpha-born. Cassian considered him, then nodded. Granted. The father's claim comes before tradition. Kiera was brought forward in chains. She no longer resembled the proud alpha who had mocked Ember. 3 days had stripped away her certainty. The guards removed the restraints. Please. Kiera's voice shook. I don't want to die. Garrick looked at her. Neither did the children you sold. Kiera started crying. Some of them died, frightened and alone. His voice trembled, calling for parents who could not find them. Garrick shifted. A massive gray beta wolf replaced the grieving father. Years of labor and hardship marked his body. Kiera shifted as well. Her russet alpha wolf remained beautiful, powerful, but her spirit had already collapsed. The fight lasted less than a minute. Garrick fought with something rank could not measure. A father's grief. Rage. Love. When it ended, Kiera lay motionless on blood-stained earth. Garrick returned to human form. Then he wept. Ember turned away. She had wanted justice. She had demanded that Kiera answer for what she had done. But watching someone she had once called a childhood friend die left only emptiness. Cassian wrapped his arms around her. Come. He guided her away. You don't need to watch. They left the crowd behind and walked toward a quiet clearing at the edge of Moonshadow territory. Moonlight fell through the branches. Cassian finally spoke. Are you all right? I don't know. Ember looked toward the ground. I thought seeing them punished would make me feel better. Vindicated? Maybe. She exhaled. Instead, I'm just tired. Cassian took her hand. Justice doesn't heal wounds. Ember looked at him. It stops the bleeding long enough for healing to begin. His thumb moved over her fingers. But healing takes time, work, and people who refuse to let you disappear into your pain. Ember studied him. This king had disrupted everything to save her, challenged Moonshadow traditions, accepted political consequences, all for a rejected Omega he had barely known. Why did you really save me? Cassian remained quiet. You felt the mate bond in that circle. Ember swallowed. But you could have ignored it. You could have walked away and avoided all of this. Her voice softened. Why didn't you? Cassian looked into the trees for several seconds. When I was young, my father told me something. He turned back. He said a true alpha's strength is not measured by how fiercely he protects powerful wolves. Cassian stepped closer. It is measured by how gently he lifts those who have no power. His golden eyes held hers. I didn't truly understand him until I saw you kneeling there. Ember's chest tightened. You were surrounded by wolves who should have protected you. Cassian's voice became rougher. They should have valued you. Instead, they chose to destroy you because your death was easier for them than facing the truth. He moved closer. I saved you because allowing them to kill you would have made me part of their cruelty. His hand touched her cheek. I saved you because every instinct in me screamed that you mattered. Cassian hesitated. And because the moment I looked into your eyes, for the first time, the Alpha King looked vulnerable. I knew something in my life would remain incomplete without you. The mate bond burned warmly between them. Tears slipped down Ember's cheeks. I still don't know how to be someone's mate. You don't need to know today. I don't know how to deserve this. Cassian smiled faintly. Then we learn. He pressed his forehead against hers. One day, one moment, until you believe what I already know. Ember whispered, What? That you were never broken. His eyes softened. You were surrounded by wolves too blind to see your light. Cassian kissed her. Slowly, carefully, no demand. Only promise. Under the moon, Ember allowed herself to consider something she had never dared believe. Perhaps she could become whole. The next morning, Cassian gathered Moonshadow Pack. Ember stood beside him. I am taking Ember as my mate. The pack became silent. She will stand as Luna of the Northern Territories. Cassian looked across the crowd. Anyone who challenges her position challenges me. No wolf spoke. Then one wolf knelt. Another followed. Then another. Not from fear. Acceptance. The Omega Moonshadow had rejected was now being acknowledged by the wolves who once considered her worthless. A different life waited ahead. Chapter 8. The Luna's Burden. The mating ceremony would take place beneath the next full moon. 10 days away. For Ember, those 10 days existed between two lives. She had left the medical tent and moved into Cassian's private pavilion. The space was large and comfortable. It made her feel protected. It also made her painfully visible. Members of the King's Guard treated her respectfully now. Sometimes Ember caught them watching. She couldn't tell whether their expressions held curiosity, doubt, or disbelief that a formerly rejected Omega could become Luna. Ember wondered the same thing herself. You're thinking loudly again. Cassian sat behind a desk reading reports. Ember lowered the etiquette manual Lyra had given her. I'm always thinking loudly. Cassian looked up. One of my few talents. He smiled. Your talents also include surviving years of abuse, discovering evidence everyone else ignored, identifying a trafficking route, attacking a beta 3 times your size to protect children, and somehow making me laugh after I've spent hours reading about corrupt officials. Ember felt heat rise into her face. Cassian leaned back. I would say you possess more than one talent. Compliments still made her uncomfortable. She changed the subject. Moonshadow is talking. Moonshadow always talks. About us. Cassian closed the report. About whether I'm suitable to become Luna. Let them talk. He crossed the pavilion and crouched in front of her. Ember, there will always be wolves who believe you aren't strong enough. His gaze remained warm. Dominant enough. Powerful enough. Whatever enough means to them. Cassian took her hands. Those same wolves questioned me when I became Alpha King at 25. Ember blinked. You? They called me too young. He smiled dryly. Too idealistic. Too concerned with weaker wolves. Too unwilling to make hard choices. What changed their minds? Nothing. Ember stared. They still say those things. Cassian touched her face. I don't rule because I need everyone's approval. His expression became serious. I rule because someone must stand between power and the wolves who cannot defend themselves against it. He paused. The same way you stood between Reese and those children. That was different. How? It was instinct. Exactly. Cassian's thumb brushed her cheek. Your instinct is to protect. He leaned closer. To shield wolves weaker than yourself. That is what makes you right for this. Ember looked away. A Luna isn't merely an alpha's mate, Cassian continued. She is the heart, while the alpha is the spine. His voice softened. She notices wolves others ignore. She fights battles that cannot be won with claws. She prevents strength from becoming cruelty. Ember swallowed. You make it sound noble. It can be. What if I fail? Cassian didn't answer immediately. What if they need something I cannot give? Then you try again tomorrow. He pressed his forehead against hers. And again the day after that. Eventually, you look backward and discover you became the wolf you were meant to become, while you were too busy trying to notice. Ember closed her eyes. I believe in you, Cassian whispered, even when you still struggle to believe in yourself. A knock interrupted them. Thorn entered. Your Majesty. Your Majesty. Cassian immediately straightened. His gentleness disappeared beneath the Alpha King's authority. There has been a development during the interrogation of the captured rogues. What? One prisoner asked to speak specifically with Ember. Ember frowned. Why? He claims he has information about her family. Cold moved through Ember. My family. Her mother was dead. At least, that was what Ember had assumed. Alora had left Moonshadow 5 years earlier. She had been unable, or unwilling, to tolerate the shame she associated with her broken daughter. Ember had heard nothing from her since. Thorn looked toward Ember. He says your mother is alive. Ember forgot how to breathe. And he says she worked with the trafficking network. No. The word emerged as a whisper. That isn't possible. Cassian took her hand. He may be lying. Ember's eyes remained fixed on Thorn. A manipulation. Cassian squeezed her fingers. Or he may be telling the truth, Ember said. She felt hollow. I need to know. The captured rogue was kept inside a reinforced silver-lined cell at the edge of camp. He appeared only slightly older than Ember. His eyes had the hardness of someone who had spent his life beyond normal pack society. Ember stopped outside the bars. Cassian stood on one side of her. Thorn stood on the other. You asked for me. The rogue looked up. You're Alora's daughter. His gaze moved over Ember's face. I can see it. Same eyes. Where is she? The rogue smiled. Safe. Ember's stomach tightened. Comfortable. His smile widened. Living better than she ever did in Moonshadow. Ember stepped closer. Explain. Your mother was smart. Cassian growled faintly. When she realized you would never become anything useful, she decided she wouldn't let your weakness drag her down with you. What deal did she make? Information for gold. Ember went still. Patrol routes. The rogue began listing them. Families whose children wouldn't be immediately missed. The old eastern caves. Each word cut deeper. In return, the network gave Alora enough gold to start a comfortable life in the Western Territories. You're lying. Am I? The rogue leaned toward the bars. How did the network know Moonshadow's internal patrol structure? Ember didn't answer. How did Kiera know exactly what evidence would make you look guilty? He smiled. Your mother sold you out, little Omega. Cassian stepped forward. Enough. Ember raised one hand. He stopped. She looked at the rogue. Keep talking. Alora told Kiera how to frame you. Ember's face went numb. What items would look most suspicious? What fears Moonshadow already associated with you? The rogue's voice became cruel. The scent. She wanted you dead. Ember closed her eyes for 1 second. So she could finally stop being ashamed of the daughter she wished she never had. Cassian growled. Ember stopped him again. Why tell me? Because I want a deal. The rogue sat back. My freedom for your mother's location. Cassian laughed once. Cold. You expect freedom? She started the operation in Moonshadow. The rogue's gaze stayed on Ember. Kiera and Reese were tools. Cassian's expression hardened. You trafficked children. I'm offering information. The rogue leaned forward. And she deserves to confront the woman who gave birth to her and traded her life for gold. Ember wanted to leave. She wanted to reject every word. But not knowing would follow her forever. Where is she? Cassian looked at her. You don't have to do this. I do. We can find Alora without him. I need to know. Ember looked at Cassian. Please. His jaw tightened. Then Cassian faced the rogue. You give us her exact location. The prisoner waited. In return, I do not execute you. His eyes brightened. You will receive the same sentence as Reese. Permanent exile. Tracking collar. Cassian stepped closer to the bars. If this information is false, or if you send Ember into a trap, his voice became soft. I will find you. The rogue swallowed. And your death will not be quick. He nodded. Ashford. Ember listened. Western Territories, a small settlement beside a river. The rogue continued. She lives under the name Alora Riversong. How far? About 3 days. The prisoner sat back. She thinks nobody will connect her to Moonshadow. Ember looked at him. She's wrong. They departed at dawn. Only Ember, Cassian, Dakota, and Finn went. A small, fast group. Thorn remained at Moonshadow to continue interrogations and contact other packs reporting suspicious disappearances. The journey carried Ember through landscapes she had never seen. Dense forests opened into plains. Plains became rolling hills. Beyond them lay the border country between organized pack territories and rogue lands. Cassian rarely moved far from her. His presence anchored Ember while her thoughts spiraled. Had Alora always hated her? Had every childhood kindness been false? Or had years of social shame slowly poisoned whatever love her mother once possessed? On the second night, Cassian sat beside Ember near their campfire. You don't have to confront her. Ember stared at the flames. We can arrest her without putting you through this. I need to hear it from her. You may never receive an answer that makes sense. I still need to look at her. Ember finally turned. I need to understand how a mother does this to her own child. Some people don't deserve understanding. Maybe. Ember looked back at the fire. But I deserve closure. Cassian pulled her against him. His scent wrapped around her. Pine, winter storm, safety. Whatever she says, remember that her choices do not define your worth. Ember wanted to believe him. But somewhere deep inside lived the 16-year-old girl who had transformed beneath the moon and watched her mother turn away. Maybe Alora had been right. Maybe Ember really had been a burden. The mate bond pulsed. Cassian couldn't hear her thoughts, but he felt the pain behind them. His wolf answered with fierce warmth, reassurance. Then Cassian spoke. I love you. Ember froze. He looked at her. I know neither of us has said it. His voice was steady. But before we reach Ashford, you need to know. He touched her cheek. Whatever we discover there, I love you. A pause. Completely. Another. Irrevocably. Ember's eyes filled. And nothing she says can change that. I don't know if I'm ready to say it back. Cassian did not flinch. Not because I don't feel it. Ember struggled to continue. I'm frightened. Her voice broke. Everyone I have ever loved eventually left. Cassian held her closer. I'm not going anywhere. You cannot promise that. I can promise what I choose. He looked into her eyes. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not willingly. Ever. They reached Ashford on the third day. The settlement held perhaps 100 wolves. It sat peacefully beside a sparkling river. Comfortable homes lined quiet paths. The kind of place where wolves disappeared into new lives. Alora's house stood near the river. Modest. Well cared for. Her garden contained herbs and flowers. Smoke rose from the chimney. Someone was home. Ember's hands began trembling. Cassian remained a few steps behind. Dakota and Finn waited farther back. They gave her room, but stayed ready. Ember knocked. Footsteps sounded inside. The door opened. Alora stood there. She looked older. Silver streaks ran through her dark hair. Lines marked the corners of her eyes. But she was healthy, well-dressed, well-fed, comfortable. While Ember had been chained for execution, her mother had lived peacefully beside a river. Alora's face turned white. Ember? Her mouth opened. But you. Ember stared at her. You thought I was dead. Alora recoiled. That was the plan, wasn't it? Ember's voice became cold. Help arrange the kidnappings, help frame me, let Moonshadow execute me. She took one step forward. Then you would finally be free from having a broken daughter. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't. Alora stopped. Do not lie to me. Ember's voice cracked like a whip. Not now. She looked directly into her mother's eyes. I know you gave Kiera information. Alora's face changed. I know you helped the trafficking network understand Moonshadow. Her breath became shallow. I know you told them how to frame me. Alora's expression crumbled briefly. For 1 second, Ember thought she saw grief. Then defensiveness replaced it. You don't understand. Ember waited. You have no idea what it was like. Alora's voice rose. Raising a child who would never become anything. The old words found the same wound. The humiliation. Alora continued. The way everyone looked at me with pity because my daughter was defective. She pressed one hand to her chest. I gave up everything for you. Ember stared. And you repaid me by being nothing. Once, those words would have destroyed Ember. Now she remembered children inside silver cages. She remembered standing between Reese and those children. She remembered Cassian's hand in hers. I was a child. Alora stopped speaking. I was your daughter. Ember's voice remained quiet. And you sold my life because your pride mattered more than I did. I did what I needed to survive. No. Ember shook her head. You did what was easiest. Cassian stepped forward. Power rolled from him. And now you answer for it. Alora stared at him. Alora Riversong, formerly Alora of Moonshadow Pack. His voice became formal. You are under arrest for conspiracy, trafficking of minors, attempted murder, and treason. You will appear before the Territorial Council. Alora ran. She made 3 steps. Dakota caught her. Within seconds, Alora lay pinned against the ground. Silver restraints locked around her wrists. She screamed, denied everything, accused Ember of destroying her life. Ember stood completely still. She had wanted answers. Instead, the emptiness became unbearable. Cassian wrapped his arms around her. Ember broke. Years of pain tore free. She sobbed against him. Grief for childhood, for abandonment, for the mother she had spent years wishing would return. I've got you, Cassian whispered. He held her while her body shook. Let it out. Ember cried beside the peaceful river. Not for the woman being taken away in chains. For the mother she had never truly possessed. Chapter 9. The Luna Rises. The journey back to Moonshadow was quiet. Alora traveled in restraints. She refused to speak. Refused even to look at Ember. Ember was grateful. There was nothing left she wanted to say. Instead, she tried to focus on what waited ahead. The full moon was only 3 days away. 3 days until the mating ceremony. 3 days until she would formally stand beside Cassian as Luna. On their final night of travel, Cassian found Ember sitting with her knees pulled against her chest. You're doing it again. She glanced at him. Doing what? Trying to carry the entire world alone. Cassian sat beside her. Evening cold pressed around the camp. His warmth eased it. You don't need to repair everything Alora damaged. Don't I? Ember looked away. This trafficking operation began because she was ashamed of me. Ember. If I had been stronger. Cassian's voice became firm. Stop. She looked at him. Your mother made choices. His tone softened. She could have protected you. Loved you. She could have been proud that her daughter survived years of cruelty. Cassian shook his head. Instead, she chose greed and resentment. He touched Ember's hand. That belongs to her. Then why does it feel like mine? Because part of you still believes love is something you failed to earn. Ember went silent. Cassian turned her toward him. If you had only been stronger, more powerful, more acceptable. His eyes held hers. You think she would have loved you. Ember's throat tightened. But love is not a prize someone earns. Cassian touched her face. It is given. His voice softened. And anyone who makes you fight for the right to receive basic love has already failed you. Ember wanted to explain the knot of guilt, anger, and grief still twisting inside her. Cassian kissed her before she could. Soft, steady, the same devotion he had shown since the execution circle. 3 days, he murmured. Ember opened her eyes. 3 days until the entire world knows you are mine. His mouth curved. And I am yours. Ember's fear returned. What if I'm not ready? Then I stand beside you while you become ready. What if I fail? Then we fail together. Cassian gave her a crooked smile. And then we stand up and try again. Ember looked at him. You're not afraid? Cassian gave her a crooked smile. I'm terrified. She blinked. That one morning you'll wake up and realize you could have chosen better than a king barely keeping half his territories from arguing with the other half. Ember almost smiled. I worry I won't be enough to repair what they did to you. You are enough. The force of Ember's answer surprised both of them. You're more than enough. She squeezed his hand. You're everything. The mate bond flared. Warm and golden. Something moved inside Ember. Not complete healing. The beginning. They reached Moonshadow at midday. The territory had transformed. Garlands of silver moon blooms hung from trees and buildings. White banners bearing Cassian's crest moved in the wind. A raised platform stood in the central square, decorated with crystals designed to reflect the full moon. Ember stared. Beautiful. Overwhelming. Terrifying. Lyra hurried toward them. Thank the goddess. Relief filled her face. I thought you might miss your own ceremony. She hugged Ember carefully. Representatives are arriving from across the northern territories. Ember's stomach dropped. Alphas, Lunas, council members. Everyone wants to see this. To see whether I'm worthy. Lyra's smile sharpened. Let them judge. She looked Ember over. They'll see what I see. What? A wolf who survived what should have destroyed her. Alora was taken to holding cells. Her formal sentencing would happen later. As the guards led her away, Ember met her mother's eyes once. There was no apology, no affection, only resentment. Ember turned away. She was finished grieving a mother who had never existed. The next 2 days passed in relentless preparation. Lyra taught ceremony protocols, where Ember would stand, what she would say, how she would receive the silver Luna markings on her wrists. Dakota drilled her on the names, ranks, and political importance of visiting leaders. Whenever the preparation became overwhelming, Cassian stole Ember away. Sometimes they walked through the forest. Sometimes they sat beside the river. He reminded her that beneath politics, ritual, and power, this ceremony belonged to them. The night before the full moon, Cassian approached with a small wooden box. I have something for you. Ember opened it. Inside rested a delicate silver necklace. A crescent moon pendant hung from the chain. Inside the curve of the moon sat a tiny glowing stone. What is it? A moonstone. Cassian lifted the necklace. It contains a drop of my blood. Ember looked at him. An old alpha tradition. He moved behind her. A mate carries part of his essence so she can carry his strength even when they're apart. He placed the necklace around her throat. Warmth moved through Ember. Cassian, I don't have anything to give you. You already gave me more than I expected to have. What? Hope. His hands cupped her face. Purpose. Cassian smiled. A reason to become better than the wolf I was. Ember's eyes filled. Tomorrow you become Luna. He brushed his thumb beneath one eye. But tonight you're simply Ember. His expression turned serious. And I want you to know something before titles complicate it. Ember waited. I would have chosen you even without the bond. Her breath caught. If fate had never called you mine, I would still have seen you kneeling in that execution circle. Cassian leaned closer. And I still would have known I couldn't walk away. Ember kissed him. She put everything she could not yet explain into that kiss. Fear, hope, love. Tomorrow she would become queen. Tonight she was only Ember, a woman who had finally been seen. The full moon rose huge and bright. Representatives from packs across the northern territories filled Moonshadow's central square. They formed a circle around the ceremonial platform. Inside the preparation tent, Ember's heart pounded. She wore simple white silk. Moon blooms had been woven into her dark hair. Cassian's moonstone necklace rested at her throat. Lyra adjusted one final flower. "You look like moonlight became a woman." Ember swallowed. "I feel like I'm about to vomit." Lyra laughed. "That too." She squeezed Ember's hand. "You already survived the difficult part." Music began outside. Drums, flutes, a haunting ceremonial melody. This only makes it official. Ember stepped from the tent. The crowd opened a path. At the far end stood Cassian. Ceremonial armor covered him. Black leather beneath silver plates. Symbols of kingship marked every piece. But Ember barely noticed the armor. She noticed how he looked at her, as if everyone else had disappeared. The mate bond sang. Fear began releasing its grip. Ember walked forward, past wolves who had mocked her, past families who had ignored her, past Elder Moira. The old wolf watched silently. Maybe with approval. Ember climbed the platform. Cassian took her hands. Everything else disappeared. Alpha Garrett, still acting as Moonshadow leader until a replacement could be selected, performed the ceremony. His voice was formal. "Under the moon's witness, we gather to bind two souls." He looked between them. Alpha and Omega, King and Luna, equal partners in leadership and love. Garrett turned to Cassian. "Cassian Shadowborn, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, do you take this wolf as your mate?" Cassian never looked away from Ember. "To stand beside her in strength? Yes. To shelter her in weakness? Yes. To honor her in all things? I do." Cassian's voice carried across the square. "I take Ember as my mate." His grip tightened. "My Luna, my equal in all things." Ember's eyes filled. "I vow to protect her, to cherish her." Cassian's expression softened. "And to remind her every day that she was never broken." A murmur moved through the gathering. Only surrounded by wolves too blind to recognize her light. Tears slipped down Ember's cheeks. Garrett turned toward her. "Ember, formerly of Moonshadow Pack." She took a breath. "Do you accept Cassian Shadowborn as your mate?" "Yes." "To stand beside him in strength?" "Yes." "To shelter him in weakness?" "Yes." "To honor him in all things?" Ember looked into Cassian's golden eyes. "I do." Her voice strengthened. "I take Cassian as my mate, my alpha, my equal." Cassian smiled. "I will stand beside him, fight beside him." Ember looked out at the gathered wolves, and remind him every day that true strength is not simply power. The square remained silent. It is choosing compassion even when the world demands cruelty. Pride transformed Cassian's expression. Garrett brought forward silver-tipped tattooing needles blessed beneath full moons, the marks of Luna. Ember extended her wrists. The process was fast, painful. Silver ink entered her skin in patterns resembling flowering vines. A crescent moon appeared on her right wrist. Cassian's personal sigil marked the left. When the work was complete, Garrett stepped away. By the moon's light and under the witness of the packs, he looked at Ember. "I declare you mated. Luna Ember Shadowborn," his voice carried. "Queen of the Northern Territories." The packs howled. The sound thundered across Moonshadow. Cassian pulled Ember against him, then kissed her beneath the moon. The mate bond erupted. No longer merely a thread connecting them. It felt complete, joined. When they finally separated, Ember looked at the wolves surrounding them. For the first time in her life, she felt belonging without qualification. "My Luna," Cassian whispered. "My Alpha." Ember rested her forehead against his. The Omega who had knelt for execution now stood beneath the same moon as Queen. The celebration continued deep into the night. Music, food, dancing. Wolves from territories that rarely interacted shared meals and stories. Children played while leaders discussed alliances and trade. For a few hours, everything felt hopeful. Eventually, Ember drifted toward the edge of the gathering. Her gaze moved toward the holding cells. Allura waited inside. Cassian appeared beside Ember. The completed mate bond made him sensitive to every shift in her emotions. "Do you want to see her?" Ember hesitated. "One last time." She nodded. "I think I need to." They walked together. Music faded behind them. Allura sat alone. Moonlight made her face look hollow. "Come to celebrate in front of me?" Her voice was bitter. "No." Ember stopped outside the cell. "I came to tell you I forgive you." Allura stared. "What?" "I forgive you." Ember touched the Luna markings on her wrists. "Not because you earned forgiveness." Her voice stayed calm. "And not because anything you did was acceptable." She looked directly at her mother. "I forgive you because I refuse to spend the rest of my life carrying your hatred." Allura's expression hardened. "You wanted me dead because you believed I was broken." Ember shook her head. "But I wasn't broken." She remembered her execution night. "I was inconvenient. And that says everything about you." Her eyes remained steady. "Nothing about me." Allura sneered. "You think becoming a king's trophy makes you special." Cassian's expression darkened. "You're still the worthless Omega you always were." "She is my Luna." Cassian's voice became cold as winter. "She survived everything you did to destroy her." He stepped beside Ember. "She became stronger despite you." His eyes hardened. "And she is one of the reasons I still believe there is good worth protecting in this world." Cassian stared at Allura. "She is worth 1,000 wolves like you." Allura had nothing to say. She turned into the darkness. Ember walked away, hand in hand with Cassian. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For defending me." Cassian squeezed her hand. "Always." They returned to the celebration. Ember let music and laughter surround her. Not everyone there loved her. Perhaps many still doubted her. But for the first time, nobody had the right to deny that she belonged. Tomorrow, Luna Ember would begin making sure other vulnerable wolves were heard. Tonight, she was simply Ember. Loved, mated, home. Chapter 10. The Omega Who Became Queen. 3 months passed. The northern territories changed slowly but unmistakably. Ember stood on the balcony of a new royal lodge built on neutral ground between territories. Cassian had ordered it constructed as a permanent place of governance. Any wolf could come there, to request help, seek justice, report abuse, or simply be heard. That last part had been Ember's insistence. Every wolf deserved to be heard. She watched sunrise move across the forest. Behind her, Cassian woke. The mate bond warned her of his approach before his arms wrapped around her waist. "You're awake early." He kissed her temple. "Couldn't sleep. Too much to think about." Ember leaned against him. "The council meeting. The reforms. Whether the alphas will agree to policies that challenge the system their authority depends on. They'll listen." Ember almost laughed. "You sound confident." "I've watched you convince them for 3 months." Cassian rested his chin near her shoulder. "You make them understand that power built on suffering is not strength." Slowly, many leaders had begun listening. Ember's reforms started with the wolves most easily ignored. Omegas. Low-ranking families. Children with no political influence. Safe houses were established in every pack. Wolves facing abuse or rejection could seek shelter. Missing person reports entered a centralized system so leaders could no longer quietly ignore disappearances. Packs now faced audits regarding treatment of low-ranking members. Many alphas hated it. Some openly challenged Ember. An Omega Luna ordering powerful leaders to change traditions offended everything they had been taught. Cassian stood beside her through each fight. Threats, political attacks, attempts to weaken her authority. Slowly, other wolves began recognizing what Cassian had seen first. Leadership required power, but power without compassion became cruelty. "I heard from Garrick," Ember said. Cassian looked down. They found Sarah. His arms tightened around her. Alive? Ember nodded. She was being held at a rogue compound in the west. Emotion filled her voice. She's coming home. Cassian closed his eyes briefly. How many recovered now? 15. Ember looked toward the forest. 15 of the 23 Moonshadow children. Her voice caught. The others. Cassian touched her arm. Don't. She swallowed. Some may not. You are not carrying that alone. Cassian turned her. We save the wolves we can. His expression became grim. For those we cannot, we find justice. Ember nodded. But I have to keep trying. Destroying trafficking networks had become one of her central missions. Reese's information and statements from captured rogues exposed operations across a dozen territories. Some networks were destroyed. Others remained under investigation. The work was dangerous. During the previous month, Ember had survived 2 assassination attempts. Traffickers wanted the new Luna gone. Each time the King's Guard protected her. Each time Ember stood again. Because quitting would mean accepting that wolves like the girl she used to be did not matter. Ember would rather die than believe that again. The council, Cassian reminded her. Ember exhaled. Right. Ready? As ready as I'll ever be. The council chamber filled completely. Every Northern Alpha attended. Their Lunas, Betas, advisors, representatives from neighboring regions had also arrived after hearing about Ember's reforms. Everyone wanted to know whether an Omega Queen could truly restructure centuries of hierarchy. Ember stood at the front. Cassian remained beside her. She could feel every stare, suspicion, hostility, curiosity, and from a few lower-ranked wolves, hope. Thank you for coming. Ember's voice remained steady. I understand many of you traveled considerable distances to be here. Alpha Marcus of Ironwood growled. Get to the point. We have territories to govern. Ember did not flinch. Very well, she looked across the room. For centuries, our packs have organized power around physical strength. She gestured toward the documents before each leader. Alphas above betas, betas above omegas. This created stability. Several alphas nodded, but it also created suffering. A voice interrupted. The strong survive. That is nature. Is it? Ember looked toward the speaker. Wolves survive in coordinated packs. She allowed the challenge to hang. A pack does not survive because one wolf is stronger than everyone else. She continued. It survives because each member contributes. Her gaze moved across the room. Hunters, healers, teachers, caregivers, warriors, scouts. Even pups grow into roles the pack eventually needs. She touched the documents. I am not proposing the complete removal of hierarchy. Some tension eased. I am proposing that we stop defining strength by one trait. Ember spoke carefully. Physical dominance is strength. But so is intelligence, creativity, empathy, healing, building, nurturing. Someone scoffed. You expect an Omega to have the same value as an Alpha? I expect every wolf to be valued for contribution rather than biology. Ember didn't hesitate. A healer who saves a life matters as much as a warrior who takes one. The chamber grew quieter. A teacher shaping young wolves matters as much as a patrol leader guarding borders. Her voice strengthened. And an Omega who notices what alphas ignore can prevent tragedies physical strength failed to see. The chamber erupted. Arguments collided. Some leaders supported her. Most resisted. Cassian let the noise continue briefly. Then, enough. Silence. His authority filled the room. You question my Luna. Cassian looked from one alpha to another. So answer something. No one spoke. How many of you lost children to networks you didn't know existed? Several faces changed. How many warnings did you ignore because they came from wolves you considered worthless? More silence. How many of you are sitting here wondering whether something is happening inside your territory right now because you have never listened to the wolves beneath you? Nobody answered. Cassian moved beside Ember. My Luna survived an attempted execution. He took her hand. She identified a trafficking operation that had existed for 2 years. His voice hardened. She helped save 3 children Moonshadow's hierarchy had almost abandoned. Cassian looked across the leaders. In 3 months, she has helped recover 15 more. A few alphas lowered their eyes. She has helped expose operations across a dozen territories. His fingers tightened around hers. So when Ember tells you our system contains weaknesses, listen. He looked toward Alpha Marcus. When her proposals make you uncomfortable, examine why. Cassian's voice became colder. Because this Omega some of you still consider inferior has protected more vulnerable wolves in 3 months than some leaders have protected in decades. Silence returned. Different this time. Thoughtful. Elder Moira slowly stood. Every wolf knew her. 8 decades of life carried authority even beyond Moonshadow. I have watched packs rise. Her old voice remained clear. And I have watched them fall. She looked at Ember. I have witnessed powerful alphas create glory. A pause. And ruin. Moira's expression tightened. I have also witnessed what happens when pride convinces wolves that strength alone is enough. She turned toward the council. Months ago, this Omega knelt for execution. Ember remained still. I watched. Moira's voice softened. And I did nothing. The room became silent. I allowed fear and tradition to justify my silence. She lowered her head briefly. I am ashamed. Then she faced Ember again. Since becoming Luna, Ember has shown me another kind of strength. Her voice grew stronger. The strength to stand beside powerless wolves. To challenge leaders who need challenging. To build where others only destroy. Moira faced the alphas. I support these reforms. Several leaders reacted. Not because they are comfortable. Moira lifted her chin. Because they are necessary. Her eyes moved across the chamber. Our world is changing. We can change with it. Or cling to traditions until those traditions destroy us. She sat. I know which future I choose. One voice joined her. Then another. Not enough for complete agreement. Enough to begin. Debate continued for hours. Alphas demanded amendments. Clarifications. Limits. By sunset, they had created a framework. Every pack would conduct annual reviews regarding treatment of lower-ranked members. Omegas would receive formal legal protections. They could appeal unjust decisions. Resources would be distributed partly according to contribution and need, rather than rank alone. Most importantly, every pack would appoint a representative responsible specifically for vulnerable wolves. A voice for those leaders had traditionally ignored. It was not everything Ember wanted, but it was a beginning. Afterward, wolves approached her. A Luna stopped first. My daughter is Omega. Tears filled the woman's eyes. I've spent years afraid of the life waiting for her. She smiled. Now there may be hope. Another wolf approached. A young beta. My brother tried reporting corruption. His voice shook. No one listened because he lacked rank. He looked at the new reforms. If these laws existed earlier, maybe he would still be alive. Each story lifted one weight from Ember and placed another responsibility on her shoulders. She was no longer fighting only for herself. That night, Ember and Cassian stood on their balcony. The moon rose behind them. You did it. Cassian pulled her close. You changed the world a little today. We changed it. Ember turned in his arms. I could never have done this without you. You would have found another way. No. She touched his face. Your authority protected me while I learned to use my own. Her eyes filled. You believed I was worth saving before I did. Cassian smiled. You were always worth saving. He touched her Luna marks. I only helped you finally notice. Ember looked into his eyes. I love you. Cassian's expression softened. I know I've said it before. She smiled. But I need to say it again. Her hands framed his face. I love you because you saw me when everyone else looked through me. For staying when walking away would have been easier. For believing I could become more than what they called me. Cassian kissed her forehead. I love you too. His voice roughened with emotion. For teaching me that strength exists in forms I never understood. For making me want to become better. He drew her closer. For giving me something beyond power to live for. They kissed. The mate bond sang between them. Stronger after months of shared work, danger, and trust. When they separated, Ember rested her head against his chest. There's something else. Cassian looked down. What? Ember hesitated. I'm pregnant. Cassian went completely still. What? Pregnant. She almost laughed at his expression. About 6 weeks. Lyra confirmed it this morning. Ember suddenly became nervous. We haven't really discussed children, and everything is so chaotic right now. So maybe the timing... Cassian kissed her, completely stealing the rest of the sentence. When he pulled back, tears shone in his eyes. A pup? Ember nodded. We're having a pup? Yes. Cassian laughed, joyful, almost disbelieving. Are you happy? Ember asked. Happy? He laughed again. I'm terrified. Ember's expression fell. And ecstatic. Cassian dropped to his knees. And already planning 17 ways to protect this child from every possible danger. He gently placed his hands against Ember's stomach. Yes. His voice broke slightly. I'm happy. He looked down. Hello, little one. Ember covered her mouth. I'm your father. Cassian smiled. And you have the most extraordinary mother in the world. Tears ran down Ember's face. She'll teach you to be brave, kind, strong. His thumbs moved gently against her. She'll teach you that your worth never depends on rank. Ember placed her hands over his. And your father will teach you that real alphas lead with compassion. Cassian looked up. He'll make sure you grow in a world that values you for who you are. Cassian stood. Alpha, Beta, Omega. He pulled Ember close. Our child will be perfect because they're ours. Ember smiled through tears. Perfect. Epilogue. 2 years later, Ember stood beside the nursery window. Below, Cassian played with their daughter in the garden. Little Luna had been named for her mother's title and for the moon that witnessed her parents' mating. At 18 months old, she was already beginning to show signs of her wolf. Healthy, curious, playful. No one knew what rank she would develop. Thanks to everything Ember had fought for, it would not define her worth. Cassian partially shifted and chased Luna across the garden. He deliberately let the toddler escape. Her laughter carried through the open window. The nursery door opened. Lyra entered holding reports. Latest territory numbers. Ember turned. Lyra smiled. Missing person reports are down 70% since the voice program began. Ember's expression brightened. Reported Omega abuse cases have fallen by almost half. She looked at the next page. And 8 more trafficking victims have been recovered. Ember's smile disappeared into emotion. 8? Lyra nodded. That makes 31. 31 children coming home. Ember looked back toward the garden. 31 families. Families who have you to thank, Lyra said. Not me alone. Ember turned toward her friend. Every wolf who decided tradition wasn't enough. She looked down at the silver markings on her wrists. Every alpha who chose compassion. Every omega who finally found the courage to speak. The Luna markings that once seemed impossible now felt like they had always belonged on her skin. I was a broken omega kneeling for execution. Ember spoke quietly. Now I'm Luna. She smiled toward her daughter. A mother. A wolf who can protect others who cannot protect themselves. Lyra watched her. If someone like me can change this much, then others can too. Below, Cassian looked toward the nursery. He waved. Luna copied him with one tiny hand. Love tightened Ember's chest. She had survived rejection. Betrayal. Abandonment. An execution sentence. She had turned that pain into purpose. The world was not perfect. Not every missing child had returned. Not every alpha supported reform. Not every trafficking network had been destroyed. But the invisible were becoming visible. Their voices mattered. And the work continued. Cassian entered the nursery later and wrapped one arm around Ember. She leaned against him. Outside, the moon began rising over the northern territories. Ember placed one hand gently against her stomach. A second pup had already begun growing there. Cassian noticed the gesture and smiled. In the garden below, little Luna laughed as she chased moonlit insects between the flowers. Across the territories, wolves who once believed themselves disposable were learning otherwise. One reform at a time, one rescue at a time, one voice at a time. At the center of that change stood Ember Shadowborn, the rejected Omega Moonshadow once considered broken, the wolf who had knelt in silver chains waiting for death, the woman who survived, the Luna who became queen. And beneath the full moon, as a new generation grew inside the world she and Cassian were rebuilding together, Ember finally knew with certainty what no one had been able to teach her as a child. She had never been worthless. She had never been broken, and she had never needed another wolf's permission to matter. The moon rose higher over the northern territories, bright, whole, and beneath its light, a new era was beginning.